Hi everybody, we're here today to talk about subject-verb agreement, but before we get into that, I do want to go ahead and give you a few announcements. So you do have some things that are due today. You have your extra credit, 2 options for extra credit due today, and then due after break, you have the midterm rating assignment, midterm and writing assignment number 2. Now, I have assigned midterm groups, and I'm giving you today to work with your midterm groups. So if you don't have a midterm group and you want to be in a midterm group, please let me know and I'll get you assigned. Also, quiz number 2 is open if you would like to retake that quiz. All right, so let's get into subject-verb agreement, which is the topic for today. So when I say subject-verb agreement, the idea, what I mean is that every sentence needs to be balanced. So if you think of an equation when you have a variable on one side of the equation and then you have some numbers on the other side of the equation, and you have to get both sides to balance out. That's what I mean when I say subject-verb agreement. Is a sentence is like that equation. We have the subject on one side and the predicate on the other, and you have to get that subject and that simple predicate or the verb to balance out. If we don't have agreeing subjects and verbs, we create confusion. So in these examples that I have on the screen here, we see an agreement problem with each of them. The dog barks, the dog bark, the men walks, the man walk. In each of these situations, we have an agreement problem. And not only is this not grammatical, but the problem is that the reader really isn't sure what's happening here. Is this a singular subject or a plural subject? Are we talking about one dog or many dogs? One man or many men? We're not quite sure when those words don't really line up. So we need to make sure that we have agreement. When we are talking about agreement, there's 2 rules that we need to consider. Third person singular pronouns and singular nouns require a singular verb. Singular verbs end in S. So you can think of singular S. So she and dog are both singular verbs, or singular nouns. They take singular verbs that end in S. She walks, the dog walks, right? Both of those are singular, so we think singular S. We need a verb that ends in S. On the other hand, when we have third person plural pronouns and plural nouns, more than one, these require a plural verb, and the plural verb does not end in S in the present tense. So they walk and the dogs walk. They and dogs are both plural. So in this case, they both take a plural verb that does not end in S. So how do you figure out what verb you need? Well, it's pretty simple method. Number 1, we're going to find the subject of the sentence. We've talked about subject before, and we're going to talk about subject again. So if you're not quite sure what the subject is, just hang on because we're going to review that. But to determine subject-verb agreement, we want to start with number 1, finding the subject. Number 2, asking yourself, is the subject singular or plural? Remember, there could be a compound subject, and we'll talk about that in just a second as well. And then 2, identify the correct verb based on your answer to number 1. So we're finding our subject and we're saying, is this singular or plural? Then that's going to tell us, does it need a singular ends in S verb or a plural does not end in S verb? So let's look at the example below. Barb and Mary drive or drives to the movies. The subject of this sentence is Barb and Mary. This is a compound subject. We have 2 nouns that are joined by and. In this case, Barb and Mary are compound and they're plural. We've got 2 people, so that's a plural subject. So we're going to say drive to the movies, not drives. We don't need an S because it's not singular, it's plural. So we follow the format. What's the subject? Barb and Mary. It's a compound subject. Is it singular or plural? It's plural. They're 2 people. So the correct answer is drive to the movies. Now that's a pretty simple concept, but we do run into some tricky situations, and the first one is the one that I was just addressing, which is compound subjects. So most of the time when you have a compound subject, you've got 2 nouns joined by and they create a subject. That's a compound subject and it's plural. Barb and Mary, Tom and Jim. In those cases, you've got 2 subjects joined by and, they're plural. They're 2 people. Or you might have Chicago and Detroit. Those are two places. Or you might have, bowls and spoons. Those are two things. They're joined by and, so they're going to be plural. But in some cases, we have a subject that is joined by and that functions as a unit. So my examples here are peanut butter and jelly and macaroni and cheese. So if you're not hungry and you haven't eaten dinner, now I've just made you hungry. But peanut butter and jelly and macaroni and cheese. Even though technically we have macaroni, which is a noun, and cheese, which is a noun, and we have peanut butter, which is a noun, and we have jelly, which is a noun, and we have joined them with and. Those are units. Peanut butter and jelly is one thing. Macaroni and cheese is one thing. We're not talking about just the noodles and the cheese. We're talking about the dish, right? In that case, we're going to have those each take the singular noun. So we have here a form of is, which is an irregular verb, but peanut butter and jelly is my favorite food, not are my favorite food. And macaroni and cheese tastes good, and that's more of the regular verb where you have the S because it's a singular thing, macaroni and cheese. Now, if we look at the third sentence, I have the peanut butter and the jelly are on the shelf. This is a little bit different because you have two separate things here, the peanut butter and the jelly. I'm not talking about peanut butter and jelly, the dish. I'm talking about the peanut butter and the jelly. Now, if I were going to make this simpler, I would just say the jars. The jars of peanut butter and jelly are on the shelf. But in this case, I wanted to show you how sometimes even if it's something that typically acts as a single unit, in some cases it's not. So remember what I always say. English comes down to two things, context and memorization. We can memorize the rules all we want, but if we don't look at the context, we're going to miss the exceptions. And this is an example of an exception. Okay, the other two, indefinite pronouns and either or, neither nor, these are things we have discussed before. But remember from the pronoun review, indefinite pronouns, some are always singular, some are always plural, and some can be either. So every and everybody, those are always singular. So if every teacher and administrator participates, everybody participates. Notice that this is a verb with an S. It's a singular verb for a singular pronoun because every and everybody are always singular. Few, on the other hand, is plural. Few people write. Notice it's not few people writes. It's few people write letters. Few is plural in this case. And remember to that old rule about either or, neither nor. It was a tricky one, but remember that rule. The verb agrees with the subject closest to the verb. So neither the boss nor the employees walk to work. Employees is plural and is closest to the verb walk. So in this case, we have employees walk, neither the boss nor the employees walk to work. It is a plural verb. If it was neither the employees nor the boss, it would be walks to work because boss would be closest to walk. Now remember, when we discussed this before, we said if you're going to use this kind of construction, you always want to make sure that you have the plural noun closest to the verb when possible. Otherwise, it might be grammatically correct, but it sounds really weird. Okay, so now that we've talked about subject-verb agreement, I said I wanted to review subject and predicate because if you can't find the subject, you can't figure out if we should have a plural or a singular verb. All right? So the subject, that is who or what the sentence is about. The person, place, or thing that the sentence is about. It's the noun. The noun that the sentence is about. The complete subject is the noun and everything else that's not part of the complete predicate. The simple subject is just that noun, the person, place, or thing that the sentence is about. The predicate, on the other hand, tells us something about that subject, that noun, either what it's doing or its state of being or its condition. The complete predicate is the main verb of the sentence, as well as everything else said by, to, or about the subject. The simple predicate is just the verb. So you'll notice the example here, Miranda, the tired mom, has slept very little. The whole subject is Miranda, the tired mom. The whole predicate has slept very little. The simple subject is Miranda, and the simple predicate is the verb, has slept. Remember, verbs can be up to 4 words long, so we just have one verb there, but it's multiple words. All right, so we want to realize that both subjects and predicates may be compound. A compound subject is two or more simple subjects that are joined by a conjunction. And a compound predicate is two or more verbs with the same subject that are connected by a conjunction. So in the sentence below, we have both a compound subject and a compound predicate. Maria and Jane, two subjects conjoined by a conjunction, say that 5 times fast, argued with the teacher and received attention. So we have argued and received. Maria and Jane, they're connected with and, they're both the subject of the sentence. And then argued and received. Both argued and received have the same subject, so that's a compound predicate. Okay, so now it's your turn. So I have a link here, and you guys will also see this in the link to the Google slide. There's a link to a Halloween grammar game, and that's subject-verb agreement, and you play the game, and then it completes a story for you. So I want you to take some time and complete that subject-verb agreement game, and then I want you to paste the screenshot in an email to me so I can see that you've completed that and have practiced. Then for the rest of the class, you should spend that time working with your group on your midterm and or completing the extra credit if you haven't done it and you plan to do it, and or completing your writing assignment. All right, if you guys have any questions on subject-verb agreement or anything else that we're supposed to be doing, send me an email or send me a message, and I look forward to seeing you after break. Have a great day.